try to think about getting it right in the middle, right? So we've talked, Monday, about how if you imagine this like, you have this block of limestone or marble or something, and you have to bring this form out of it, right? How much of this do we need to carve out? But this framework is going to help us with deciding our proportions, deciding how we can essentially measure this versus this, right? In this case, I've got like this kind of, like if I were to try to draw this like a cubist, and when I say cubist, you know what I mean, hopefully, like Picasso. Analytical cubism more, like everything straight edges, straight angles. If I had to draw this with planar analysis, I would probably start with a pretty skinny rectangular prism, right? And then I'd have to take some more of this away up here. So if your shape or your form rather kind of agrees with this in some way, try to use that to your advantage. So I'm going to angle this to where this face meets this face really well, and this edge meets this edge really well, and that's going to help me, right? So I encourage you to use a variety of forms to do this, but we're just going to focus on one in class, and then we're going to move into application. So I'm going to try to draw this pretty big for you so you can get a good idea about what's happening. So just like before, first thing, I'm going to go ahead and start with this pillar, right? So again, I'm going to try to draw nice and large so you can see it. Start with my pillar, okay? From there, I'm going to get a base angle. I just prefer to build from the base for whatever reason. I'm going to bring that back here. I look at it, and I slash it in there as best I can, right? Okay. Then I'm going to get this other one. This one's really, it's very much foreshortened. So like several of you probably noticed, if you have an angle that you're almost kind of like in line with like this is going to warp a lot and change a lot. So I point my skewer in that direction, and when I bring that back over here, I stay back enough that I allow it to kind of point until it hits the paper kind of thing. I look at that angle, I try to memorize it, and then I sketch it in. Okay, so I'm just gonna do a little pencil sighting here. Try to figure out how long those edges are. So what I'm seeing when I measure this to this and compare that to this, it's about 2/3 of this here, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to define how large I want this to be. And since I said that this one here, right, would compose about 2/3 of this, essentially if I discover where that 2/3 element would be, I can measure that out, flip to that edge, give myself a hash mark there. That way, the relationship between this edge, this plane, is in proportion to the way that angle works. And I'm going to go ahead and bring that up. So now I've got a couple of other things that I can measure, and I can decide on height, right? Since I know this, I can turn that on its edge and take it up. So I see 1 and about 1/2 of those. So if I take that, go here, I want to go about 1/2, so I'm going to make a hash mark about halfway between my fingers there. I know where to start this angle coming back this way. So now I'll go ahead and just establish that. And since I have this one here, I can now bring this other one back here. That doesn't look right. There we go. So when I'm doing this, I'm basically looking at where does it touch here, where does it touch here. I'm memorizing that, and I'm drawing a quick line in there, right? There we go. That looks better. Okay. Because I can see some negative space inside of there, I'm going to go ahead and draw all the frame that I can see. That doesn't look right. But I think it is. There we go. That looks right. Now again, I can't see this edge completely back here, but I can see that back frame element here. So it looks like I can draw straight down from there. So what I want to do is I just want to keep this as is right now. I don't want to really solidify that, right? Now the job or the task is to figure out how I can draw this within this, right? So a couple of things we can do. If you remember yesterday when I was showing you how to draw planes that were coming at you, and then I was showing you how to draw the middle of it, right? We just go corner to corner to find that. Because I put this right in the middle, I can use that as a handy way to start from the middle of my object. So I can go from this corner to this corner with a pretty straight line. And I know that this piece should be sitting to where the middle of it is here, right? So now I'm going to kind of evaluate how close it is down here, how close it is on either side. So now I'm just going to kind of sketch this element, bless you. I have way less space here than I do on the other edges, so now I'm just going to go ahead and wrap that around. And because the shape, or the form that I chose rather, sort of agrees with this rectangular prism idea, I can kind of follow these guidelines to help me. Now I can't see the back edge of this, so I'm not going to worry about plotting that out. What I'm going to do is start to bring this up now. And I'm going to start with a just basic kind of rectangular prism thing, and then I'm going to change the form depending on what I see and how it deviates from that rectangular prism. But one thing I need to do is figure out how tall this thing's going to be. From my perspective, I don't see any of this within this plane up here. So that means I'm not going to see any of my form up in here, right? A really handy thing that's happening right now is the very top of this dish soap container is hitting right here, right? So for me, I can bring that pretty much straight up into there. What I'm going to do here is I'm just going to like replicate this angle going back into space like this. Same here. Looking at how much space I have back here, I'm looking at negative space. Actually, it doesn't go that far out, so I'm going to go ahead and go with that there, okay. So now I'm going to look at how my object deviates. So one thing that deviates from that is that it comes in a little bit here on both sides, then it comes up. So I got to figure out at what point that's going to be happening here. So I'm going to pencil sight from the top of the frame to where it starts to push toward a cone type form. And I'm going to compare that to the rest of the form by pencil sighting 1, 2, 3. So if I divide this into thirds, right, I should be able to find this point at which it starts to truncate and change. So just roughly, I'm going to like go through here and kind of eyeball that. Might be a little high. So I'm just kind of like cutting across here to define some thirds. Pretty close. So that means at this point, I'm going to be able to change what's happening with that form. Now below that, there's kind of like some stuff happening there too. So it kind of comes in, then back out. And then it expands. Same thing other side. I've got some other nuances that I'm going to worry about a little bit later here, but for now, I'm just going to get the general form happening. I think it goes maybe more angled like that. And I'm being pretty loose at this point. This thing's kind of coming at me, so I'm going to create like a ridge here. I'm going to allow that to kick out a little bit. I'm going to bring that up. And I'm gonna use some kind of cylindrical stuff in here. So I know at the top there's kind of a cylinder happening. I can bring that down. Then I can make a larger cylinder for the bottle cap action happening in there. I'm using a little bit of shape analysis, but I'm also using geometric analysis in how can I get these cylinders, how can I get these rectangular prisms to work. It's like it balloons out a little bit right there. And then it kind of comes in here. I guess it's ergonomic for people to hold or something, I don't know. And then it kind of changes pitch, gets a little skinnier out here. So at this point, I would start to kind of change some of the form that I see coming to me on that leading edge. So I would go ahead and begin to make any modifications that I see within this. Like, I don't know, if I have some funky shading happening in there, or you know, if I've made this too geometric and I need to change contours and things like that, then I would clean things up. I chose this because of the liquid in here, because I felt like drawing that would really help with more dimensionality. So again, the way that liquid's sitting in there is really kind of like an oval. So I'm gonna practice that kind of on this side. I'm gonna give myself some limitations here. I'm gonna make a plane kind of coming at me kind of thing. And then if you remember the way that I showed you how to do that, we go corner to corner, side to side like that. And then we can use that as a guideline to create an elliptical image happening in there. And if I feel like that's not enough, then I'll just make my plane more severe. Like I'll widen that out. And that's gonna make an even more foreshortened oval. So practicing this a little bit is gonna help me with drawing the liquid that I see in there, right? Okay, so when we go into the still life closet, I think some of you said, oh, it's clean in here. PJ spent a lot of time in there cleaning. So when you pull stuff out, please do him a solid, do me a solid, and get that stuff put back away where you found it. You can go into my classroom too and find stuff if you'd like to. You know, challenge yourself a little bit. I'm kind of looking at that like vase thing over there. That wouldn't be a very big challenge, right? It's just a simple cylindrical thing. So spray bottles work really well for this because it's a complex form. It has like extra mechanisms that you can build off of something like this, right? So go ahead and find that, get it set up, and go to your next page, and I want you to begin that. Draw it pretty large on that page. Give yourself room to actually create that frame and to draw that element within there.